Okay, it's going on.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Did you uh, do you see a lot of used parts and stuff there, like old? My son used to be well, I guess he is a ham. He's been a ham for years, and one of the things he used to do is pick up old analog meters for me that I could use for some of my projects. I just wonder, you see stuff like that at a ham fest anymore, or is it all vendors?
Oh no, see, yeah, lots of meters. Yeah, there's few people that sell those kind of meters. I don't know where you would look for them on a non-ham site, or maybe Craigslist or something, eBay.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's still lots of them.
Yeah, I used to make analog clock using the meters for the hours and the minutes and so on. And he got me some really nice old Simpson meters, which were really a lot of fun. Okay, guys, we're recording. If you came in late, so I just want everybody to know that. Anybody want to kick this thing off? Well, Doug, I think I see your face moving, but I don't see. Okay.
Yeah, my face moves a lot.
Yeah.
I don't have really anything to talk about. I traveled all this week,
Okay.
so I didn't accomplish anything on the robot. I did work on a document regarding mapping and navigation,
Oh,
but
cool.
it's not finished yet, so I was going to post that so that y'all could see it too. It didn't get ready in time, so
Oh.
probably sometime later this week. It's similar to what you had discussed last week. Your ideas were similar to mine. I just formalized them by putting them on my document. I'll create a blog post and give y'all a link at some point.
Great, that'd be fantastic. I know in my own case I have made some progress on that, but I'm not going to report too much on that one.
That's it for me.
Okay. Hey, Raj, you got to show everybody your prize so that they know that this running Robo Columbus is a good thing. Raj. And there he is. Unmute. You're still muted.
Hey everyone.
Hey. Do you have your prize?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, and it's okay. Great. It's not even taken out of the box.
I took it out, but then I packed it back in. I didn't want to damage it. I think it's pretty sensitive.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I have something to show you on mine like that later on. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a pretty good deal. For like $35, you get LCD, you get camera, and you get the.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah. And okay, I guess I'm going to say one thing here. For what it's worth, you're probably familiar with Platform IO. I don't know, Raj, you might use something else. But Platform IO now has that there's two SDKs and one in the Arduino implementation. I've got them both to compile, but I only have a program in the Arduino one. And if you look at this, you can see that the built-in LED is changing colors.
Yep.
Okay. Couple of little quirks here. You have to take, normally you take the LED high for it to be bright. Well, in this case, you take the LED low. And also because it's three LEDs in one.
Okay.
Yeah, you have three pins that you have to control it with. They're 12, 13, and 14. But anyway, if you go to Platform IO and you download whatever chips on that, I can't Ken something or other, 120, and then you can easily get an environment for it and program it in C. And you also can program it in MicroPython, which if that's the way you like to go, that's pretty good too. Just so have fun with it. You know. Yeah.
I think it's the Kendrite 210.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's it. Yeah. But anyway, it's real easy to set up in Platform IO, and I think you can. I think you can set it up in Platform IO for Python too, but I'm not familiar with that. Okay. So, who wants to go next? Has raised a hand. Okay, John, go for it.
Well, I've got a giveaway for anybody local. A couple of weeks ago, I damaged my 3D printer, which pretty much accelerated my purchase of a new one. But I went to 1.75 millimeter instead of 2.85. So now I've got several spools of printer filament that's 2.85 millimeter that I can't use.
Okay.
Anyone in the DFW area that has a printer that uses that size filament and will even come and get it.
There's one person I know who does that, and where we had the Robo Columbus, Steve Edwards. He has a 2.85 or a 3 millimeter printer.
Yeah. Well, I've got a spool of ABS, a spool of PLA, and 2 spools of PETG.
Okay.
And I think a spool of TPU. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, John, if you, I don't know if I have your email. If you'll send me an email, I'll send a connect between you and Steve and see if he's interested.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
We use 3 millimeter as well, but
oh, okay. Well,
let Steve go first.
Well, Steve, I don't know who. It might be easier to get it to you, Kareem. I don't know. Where do you?
I'm in South Dallas.
He's in far South Dallas. Where are you, John? Just give me a general location.
I'm in Richland Hills, east side of Fort Worth.
Oh, okay. So it's going to be a problem for anyone. But if you got 4 rolls, it might be worth shipping it some cheap way. I don't know if you can.
Take your most fuel efficient car.
Yeah, they're not 4 complete rolls, but they're not.
Yeah.
They're not made. There's not a majority of it used up either.
Okay.
Probably a hybrid.
Well, we don't actually use. We use mostly nylon. We use
Boy, can you, Kareem? Can you give us any tricks on using nylon, because that's always a little bit tricky. I'd love to learn from
why
some.
everybody thinks it's so tough. It's like it's got this god-awful reputation that we use it all the time.
Probably depends.
I don't. Pardon?
It probably depends on the printer.
I'm sure it does. Yeah, I'm sure it depends on the printer, your print head. You got to get the temperatures up pretty high. You got to go fairly slow, right? You got to get the retraction right.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was wondering. What about retraction? Do you? Is it?
It's not like I've experimented a lot. We sort of, probably 3-4 years ago, we dialed it in on our CAS 5, and haven't had to mess with it since. Even though basically the Molesbot CAS 5 built-in profiles have the retraction just right, so I can look them up for console size or something. It probably also depends. So maybe that's where a 3 millimeter is a little bit better.
My main concern is keeping them dry, because I have no real good way of keeping them dry.
So I'm also wondering if anybody else has a Prusa MK3S or MK3S Plus printer. Nobody? I ordered the kit. It was kind of scary putting it together. I'm not as much to do as you will. And there's plenty of places where you can go wrong. But I'm actually tonight finishing up the calibration steps on it, so I was successful, more or less.
As far as keeping nylon dry, we have these big giant plastic tubs full of silica gel, restorable silica gel crystals. They turn color when they've absorbed too much water. And we also have a fairly large dehydrator. And the dehydrator works great to boil water.
Let me ask you this. Do you have a temperature-controlled dehydrator, which costs more, or do you have...
We're using a food dehydrator.
I understand that. A lot of...
It's temperature controlled. It's got 2 different temperature settings.
And you keep it on low or high?
High.
So that's 160 degrees, most likely.
About that, yeah.
Okay. And it doesn't screw up the filament over time?
No. I used to put it in the oven, and that would... we don't store it in the dehydrator. We use the dehydrator to restore it. If it's been out for a while and it's been on the printer, we don't have a hermetic closure where when it's cooled on the printer, and so it slowly absorbs moisture. But then we just pop it back in the dehydrator. The dehydrator is running for about 6 to 8 hours, and then pop it back.
Okay, cool.
So that makes that much of a difference, not a little less.
It's a huge difference, particularly for nylon. You can actually print nylon wet, and what you'll actually see is that the interlayer adhesion actually goes up, probably because it's sort of micro bubbling and then creating little vertical filaments in it. So it prints rougher, and it prints. It's not quite as stiff. So you really do not have, but as far as layer distribution goes, it's still very strong compared to other filaments. And we really like nylon because it's just so tough.
But Kareem, you've just revealed that actually printing in nylon isn't so straightforward. You guys just figured it out.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like once you know that you got to keep it dry, but you got to keep almost all the filaments dry. I mean, PLA is probably very forgiving, but most of them you want to keep them pretty dry. So the same protocol that we're using for nylon. Now, printing nylon with carbon fiber in it is something.
Well, when you say leaving it out for a while, what do you consider a while? A week, 2 weeks?
I think that depends on your environmental situation, right? If you're in Arizona, you could go a few weeks. Here in Texas, it depends on the time of year. We're usually able to keep it out like a week or 2 before it needs to go back.
Yeah,
if we're printing something that needs to be really dimensionally accurate, like or low friction, so you get nylon is great in the low friction category, at least how it rubs on itself. So if you're printing gears, you definitely want to have it as dry as possible, and then it'll create a nice slick surface. Dimension on that. So I would always dry it before.
Cool. Anybody else? Hey, Jay.
I'll go.
Okay, Ted, go.
All right, so I finally worked on my 3D printer and got it working. Just cleaning up the nozzle, and part of the deal was I switched from Cura to Prusa Slicer, and Prusa Slicer works a lot better, so I'm very happy with that. Anyways, so now I have let's see if I can show you guys, 80 some 3D printed parts for my walking robot, and I'm waiting on the hardware for that.
Cool.
Which model Prusa printer do you have?
I don't have a Prusa printer. I just use the Prusa Slicer. I have an Ender 6.
Yeah. If I have to do something tricky like localized support or something like that, I'll use Prusa Slicer. But typically, I just use something real simple like Kiss Slicer for most of my stuff. So I mean, that's just because what I got started on, you know.
Yeah, for some reason I never got the settings right for Kira for the Ender 6, and
Yeah.
I've always had trouble with it. So I finally got tired of I had stringing, and it would give me little blobs all over the place, and so, but changing slicer somehow fixed it.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Well, Ted, maybe I've forgotten, but which actual robot are you building?
Say again?
Which actual walking robot are you going to build?
It was one that John showed a few weeks ago called this Strider.
Who has all the banging, by the way?
Sorry, I'll mute myself.
So it's a Strider walker.
Food truck in the back.
All right, we look forward to seeing it then.
Yeah. So you have 80 parts?
It's just a little one.
Because you have 80 parts, how many parts do you got left?
No, I mean, I printed all the parts that needed to be printed.
Okay, so you're
I don't
finished.
know, there's like 12 linkages per leg, and there's 6 sets of legs, and
Okay.
Can you show that? Can you show the link or photo of what you're building?
Yeah, put it in chat.
Yeah, I don't have it up right now. Yeah, let me see if I can
Put
find
in
it.
chat later if you want.
Yeah, I'll just put in chat. It's just a little bot. It's kind of cool looking though.
Okay. Let's see here. It wants us to put the details on the list. Okay. All right. He's up there in the far north again. We have Donna with us, and this could depend on what we do on Saturday. So, Donna, will you tell us what the situation is?
Yeah, first of all, hi there, guys. Yeah, so there is going to be a SRS meeting this Saturday. I haven't spoke to the moderator or the one who actually runs those meetings, but according to our website, the meeting is still on, and it will start at 10 a.m. Pacific Coast time.
It'd be
and
8 here.
Usually, right, and then they usually run about 2 hours. According to the website, there will be a special guest speaker, and for the minute, I don't remember what the topic is, but it. Oh, I know. It's a presenter who builds robot and components that are eventually that he is selling, or that he's working to sell. And so I'm not exactly sure what the focus of the talk is, but for sure the meeting is going to happen. And usually before the meeting itself, before the prepared speaker, main presenter, is that we have an around the room. We have club business, and then we have like an around the room question and answer, showcase what it is that you're working on sort of segment. And then we have the featured speaker. And then I noticed that this month we will be having a robot, an online robot, kind of like connect, work in your own space and then connect with your colleagues session that usually lasts from an hour to 2 hours in length in addition. And so, in the early afternoon Pacific Coast time is usually when those meetings wrap up. So does that answer your question, Doug?
Yeah, and so, guys, the thought is, so that'd be 8 o'clock this next Saturday. I know that's early for a lot of people on Saturday.
Right.
But
right.
Since we didn't have a meeting this month, the thought was that we could go and visit SRS and get our monthly
fill.
robot dump. And I think, I'm not sure, but give me a second here. I'm going to try to present something. I think.
How does we get 8 o'clock?
Well, they're at 10, and we're 2 hours
behind us.
Yeah, no, they'll be in front of us. Otherwise, it'll be 2 hours later here. You're right. So it'll be 12 here, right?
Yeah.
It'll be 12 here. Oh boy.
Okay. Oh boy, what a big difference.
That's a big difference. You're right, because the sun keeps going and the hours keep. Yeah. Okay, got it. All right. Okay, so 12 o'clock, and that's more reasonable. I think we could almost make that one, right? So I think, let me see if I can get to it. I believe this is...
Yeah, so the website, by the way, is Seattle Robotics, plural.org. And so if you scroll down a little ways down from the top of the page, you'll see the various meeting announcements. And then there's one called out for the September meeting.
Okay, and I think, I want to say, he's got a Kickstarter coming up, so let me see if I can share this and go to, it'll take me a bit here, guys. Let's see, getting started with Pico, well, yeah, here it is. I think this is his upcoming, is it Rover Robotics? I think this is either your speaker or one of your speakers.
Oh, okay.
And he's going to have, it looks like in 6 days they're going to have this thing. And you can see it's got a basically 1 1/3 horsepower platform. So anyway, does this guy look familiar to you, Donna?
I don't know. I haven't met
Okay.
any of these folks.
Okay.
And like I said at the beginning, I don't remember the exact company or individual.
Okay.
It's called out though in the hyperlink off
Okay.
the website.
Okay.
There's a hyperlink. So more than likely, you're right, Doug, that this is the.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I just thought I'd share that in case, because that might be interesting. If nothing else,
Yeah.
to see how people handle those hub. I think that those are those hub motors. I'm not sure, but it looks kind of like it. All right. So.
Like, Hoverboard motor?
I don't know. That's what it looks like to me, but you know, if you put, it said 250 watts, so it's quite a bit. Okay. Huh?
Roughly 1/3 of a horsepower.
No, 755 watts is a horsepower, so they got 1,000, so 1,000 watts is about 1 1/4 or 1 1/3, something like that, somewhere in
Oh,
there.
they said his was 1,000 watts? No.
Yeah, it's 250 per wheel.
Oh, per wheel. Wow.
Yeah. So
So he hasn't buzzed by you, huh? Sitting on the thing, Don? You haven't seen him do that.
Oh no. It looks like it'd be a fun ride though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know. If somebody else is driving you, it might be scary.
Yeah.
Well, no, I would want to be in control.
Yeah.
Potential for a serious road raspberry.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Who else has got something?
Actually, Doug, before we let go of my commentary,
Yeah.
I just wanted to announce also that also on the SRS side that November 13th we will be having a second round virtual Robothon exhibition event. So this is going to be round 2, like Doug D.
Yeah.
I know that you had originally expressed interest in presenting at the first version of this event, and so now would be your opportunity, along with everyone else who's on the call, to to get registered and to present a interesting robotics-based topic. It's completely open forum, open topic, and since this group has got so much great knowledge and great information to share, I wanted to put that out there. And if you go over to robothon.org, which is our club's secondary website, right up near the top, there is a hyperlink that announces this event. And if you click on that, it will take you to the events page with all the details and the registration form. So, okay.
All right. We need to.
So with any luck, I will have my telepresence robot ready to show by that point.
All right. Sounds good, Doug.
Okay.
All right.
All
So
right.
I do encourage you, Doug, to go ahead and get registered because it is going to be a first come, first serve event for who actually gets on the docket for that day for presenters. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for letting me announce that.
No problem. Let's see. Anybody? Who's next? Who wants to jump in next?
I've got a question for Chris.
Okay.
Chris, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. With your BNO 055, did you notice an offset, like 5 degrees?
So, offset in which way?
Just in like rotation.
Rotation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, first, I'm using the 85, not the 55. So, I don't know exactly what the differences are, but offset. I did notice an offset, but one thing that I mentioned a while ago, a weird thing that I did have with the 85 is that for every 360 degrees of rotation, it was measuring basically, let's say 361 degrees or 62. So for every 360 degrees, it was off by 2 degrees, and it is consistent. And so I had to sort of compensate for that because I haven't found the root cause. So when I read the data back, it's telling me, what its current orientation is in the mode I'm operating in. It just tells me the current yaw. I look at that, but then I don't take that as an absolute value. Instead, every time I do a reading and I tell it to give me data at 100 hertz. So I look at the incremental changes in yaw, and I kind of multiply it by a factor that amounts to, I need 2 degrees extra per 360, and then I got very good results. So maybe that's what you mean by offset, but that's what I found. Other than that, I have not seen any other, offsets. But I'm only using orientation, and I'm using the game rotation vectors reporting mode.
Okay.
Which is designed for responsiveness. I think it does less sensor fusion. I don't remember the details, but it's designed for faster response rather than for the most accurate, absolute, orientation. But I found that to give me good results, but I can't say that I've, really done a trial over, let's say a course of several hours, or something like that. But at least over the course of, let's say, an hour or two, I haven't found any big issues.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I was kind of curious about that. Just, do you think it could be due to like soft iron effects? Is the environment away from floor and rebar or metal in the desk? Or?
Yeah, but see, I'm not using. I don't think in that mode I'm using it. It's using the magnetometer, right? It's just using the rate gyro. So I don't think that would be playing an effect in my case.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I was using the SAMD 21 Adafruit QT Pi, and the B&O 055, and then an OLED display, and I can print out the three, or not print it out, but just, you know, show it on a display, and, you know, when I rotate it in whichever axis, it responds. It tells me what the calibration is, so all the system, the gyro, the accelerometer, the magnetometer all show they're, you know, fully calibrated. They're all threes. So that seems to work pretty good. So I was working on changing this over from the SAMD 21, the QT over to an ESP32 board, and just wondered if, you know, you were, you know, experiencing maybe some of the same things, but it doesn't sound like it. So.
No, so I don't have the exact same hardware to begin with, right? So.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, I think it does seem repeatable. So I think I can probably offset that. And I know I'm just doing it on the top of my desk. I know there's this big metal bar that supports an extension on the desk made of steel. So that probably has a lot to do with it. I haven't, you know, mounted it on a 2-foot post yet to see what it's going to do.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm doing.
That sounds good. I know, just using the gyro on mine, well, whatever, I think they call it the IMU mode. It's really pretty good. I haven't had any real issues with it. The only issue that I sometimes get is when I turn it on, there will be a 0.06 degrees offset. And it's always 0.06. And so I'm not sure exactly where that's coming from, but it doesn't change over time, you know what I'm saying? Otherwise I can rotate the thing around and then stop and it's still, you know, 0.06. Yeah, I mean, you know, and it doesn't really affect my odometer, you know, when I'm traveling, the robot's going around, it doesn't seem to bother it. So I don't even know if it's real, you know, it's just, it's there. One thing I know that you can get yourself in trouble once you got it on your robot is if you have the thing rotated the wrong way, you know, so so your zero is not where you think it is. Yeah, it's offset.
Yeah.
So.
Gotta line up with the frame, I guess.
Yeah. Now, and for the compass, now I've never used the compass in the 055, but for other compasses that I've used, I've only had luck with them out in the yard.
Mm-hmm.
There they do, you know, they do reasonably well. I mean, you know,
yeah.
But in the house, I've never been able to do anything consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who wants to go next? Hey, John, what's coming up for Halloween this year? Anything special?
No, just trying to redo the legs on my spider.
Okay.
Use the DC motors instead of stepper motors. It's improved performance.
Okay.
I thought of hanging it from my foyer, whatever you call it, in front of the front door.
Yeah.
You know, instead of using those 2x4s to set up a frame to hang it from, because it's just such a pain in the butt. I'm kind of resistant to drilling holes in the house.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but a couple of eye bolts probably would do the job, wouldn't it?
But I was thinking of taking going up in the attic,
yeah,
and actually mounting the 2x4s across the members there, and then drilling holes for the 3 fishing lines that would raise and lower the spider. So to have the elevator motor essentially inside the attic rather than outside.
Okay. Yeah.
Just make sure your holes don't abrade your nylon and crush some little kid.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, you know, have some sort of insert with a smooth sleeve. You know, you like the kind you have for mounting screws and drywall.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure you can find something like that.
Yeah. Or one of those things that they run bicycle and motorcycle cables through. You know, they have little things that you can stick into it, inserts.
Or 3D print something.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, 3D print that in TPU or nylon. Certainly, that would do the trick.
Yeah.
I thought of, I responded to the email list. I thought it might be a nice Halloween project to have a skull with movable eyes in the sockets and use the face tracking technology using Raspberry Pi or Raspberry Pi camera, so you can have the eyes of your skeleton, the eyes of your skull, tracking people as they come to your front door.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah. Is that a challenge that you're picking up there, Ted? I mean, John?
No, I don't have enough time to do that. First off, I had to find a suitable skull, right? I also would like to have one that has a movable jaw that's operated with a servo, so that you can make the thing laugh. Get some audio behind it, make it laugh at people, and maybe even have the whole thing turn. But I think having the eyes track people's faces, that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch Craig Ferguson?
No.
No? Okay. He had a skeleton named Joff, and same sort of thing. He had, could move it around. I think he died recently, but fairly young engineer. Oh boy, I can't think of the show that he was on. Anyway, he basically helped him do it.
What?
Nobody else watched Craig Ferguson? You did? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it was a what you call animatronics, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
A very silly looking skeleton thing with glowing eyes, and they would dress it up funny, and it was his sidekick on the show because they couldn't really afford a sidekick, I think.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be nice to do something different every year, have a sort of a Halloween challenge. To come up with the best animatronic Halloween setup.
John, you have a real vested interest because I think you'd win that, wouldn't you?
Well, no, it's too late. That's something I've already done. I'm talking about something someone would do new. Like the tracking skull or whatever. So nobody's into that. From what I know.
It's not that it wouldn't be fun to do. It's just so much. But I do have something that might make it somewhat easier to do. Let me show you this. This is something that might catch your eye.
Yeah, it was Grant Imahara who did it. He used to be on Mythbusters. He's the person who designed Joff Peterson, who was
let's see.
It doesn't have to be a complicated project, especially if you did the animatronic skull, because first off, you probably wouldn't try to build the skull yourself. You could probably find something out there already.
set up on at Sam's Club, walking by. It was basically a talking skeleton, skull kind of thing in a big black hoodie, and he had like big old colors, green color on it, and he had a script that you could play over and over. Didn't see how much it cost though.
This might be of interest. This is using the Raspberry Pico, and it's got basically a 16-channel servo built in. It has a power supply that you can put in 6 to 12 volts and get up to 3 amps out, so you could drive your servos. and it works with the Pico. That'd be an excellent board for somebody to do any talking skulls. Anyway, okay. Anyway, I just thought people might be interested in that.
And actually, this is not a human skull, it's a plastic skull, but these are, if you go to any kind of medical supply, they sell complete skeletons for purposes of medical science. And this one's got a spring that makes it kind of hard to open, but if you took the spring off, it would be entirely hingeable, and you could put a servo on this. And in fact, it's even got, like, the coolest feature on this one is that the top comes off. You can put your Raspberry Pi inside. So, and I don't remember how much these cost. I bought this back in like the early 80s for an art project. But and I don't do any Shakespeare, by the way. But these are not that I think they're around $100, and they're complete. You know, this is actually a cast off of someone's real skull, so they're very, very accurate and pretty scary. You could put like lights in the nose. You could drill out the backs of the eyeballs because they have kind of this weird little slot, but you could drill out the backs of the eyeballs and put lights back there as well and make this into a truly scary object.
You sure could.
And just tell everybody you made it from a real skull. Make it a little bit a little creepier.
Yeah.
I can just imagine nowadays people would just 3D print one; they wouldn't buy one. So.
Yeah. Actually,
I saw a project on on not Thingiverse, excuse me, Instructables, where a guy was making not one skull, but he was trying to make dozens for his yard. Where he'd have them all over his yard, like piles of them. And what they were doing was they were essentially using old plastic milk jars, and they were using one skull mold, and they were just basically melting it onto to it and then cutting around, and they would have I don't know how he got it out, but he got it out somehow, and so he was actually could rapidly make skulls. And that might be a cheaper way. I don't know. I'm sure if you go down to a Halloween store, there's probably skulls that you could use. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need to have anatomically correct one. I mean, that's a bit of overkill.
Yeah.
Find somebody who's not using theirs.
Yeah, right. Can I borrow your skull? Let's see. Who else wants to go next?
I can go next. I opened my mouth.
Okay.
So I've spent the last, I guess, about a week now. I have, as I think a lot of you may know, I've been trying to do this sort of I2C master-slave thing, and after much advice from many people everywhere, basically telling me to drop the idea because it's too much trouble, I have two options now. One is to buy a Pi board, and of course, Pi boards are expensive, especially in New Zealand. So the Pi board D series, by the time I shipped it here with the little breakout board, would be like $150 New Zealand, and that's $150 US. Like it feels like 150 here. So that's a lot of money for a small board. And so I thought, okay, I'll take the advice, and I've actually spent the last week in MicroPython on either a Itsy Bitsy RP2040 or on a Tiny Pico. I've used both of them now, and I've basically spent the week in MicroPython. One of the Tiny Pico is now being used for my Raspberry Pi's external clock, which is a reliable 50 hertz or 20 hertz clock that never changes because it's not on the Pi. And the other one is actually is attached to my front sensors and I've got a infrared detector, 15 centimeter detector on the mast, and then I've got backup detectors as well. So it's 6 digital sensors. And I've got them feeding into the Itsy Bitsy RP2040 now, and I'm hooking up via UART, which of course makes more sense to, I'm sure, you guys. And my first attempt at UART was to the Tiny Pico on the back of the robot, and it was not reliable at all. And so I've just now moved, So the tiny Pico is back here, and the Itsy Bitsy is right here, and of course it's right next to the front sensors, and those are just lever switches. And I'm getting pretty good results now on the UART on the Itsy Bitsy. So if I hit like the lever switch from my starboard bumper, it pops up on the UART pretty reliably. And that's all. It's my first kind of semi complicated MicroPython coding. So
it's all in MicroPython.
Pardon? It's all in MicroPython. Everything, yeah. So I've brought across iter tools, and I wrote my own Q class based on keep Q, and I've got both the dot star and the NeoPixel, which are the respective RGB LEDs on each one, so I can send, because you don't want to print to the console, of course, because you can't see it anyway unless you're an R shell, and that messes up everything else. So what I'm doing is I'm using the RGB LEDs as signaling. So I'm not sure if this is even possibly seen, probably, and I can't pick this up unfortunately, but if I hit that, it hits can you guys see the green light flashing?
Yep.
That's basically, I've got a different colored light for each of the sensors. So it's RG and B for the front, and then yellow, magenta, and cyan for the back. So kind of taking off of David Anderson's idea of letting you see what the robot sees. Whenever anything gets hit on those, the little RGB LED flashes to tell me it's actually seen that. And then that goes through the UART to the Pi, and that's pretty reliable. Not surprisingly. I mean, it takes Murray like, what, 9 months to figure out that a UART works? So.
But you just said it wasn't reliable earlier at the beginning.
It wasn't reliable for some reason on the back of the Pi using the tiny Pico, and I'm not sure why. I was getting ghost triggers. Like if I hit the starboard sensor, the center and the port one would often trigger as well, and I could never figure out why. And I just this morning, it's morning here, just this morning, well, it's not morning anymore, but this morning I swapped the two, Tiny Pico to RP2040, and the RP2040 for some reason, perhaps because it's not, I mean, the cable's the same, the wires are the same length because I'm using the same wires, but they're not wrapped around the Pi, and they're not, I may have been getting crosstalk. So I don't blame the microcontroller here. I think it's more likely crosstalk or something else. And so what I'm going to now, and the Tiny Pico is now just being used for the external clock. That's just one pin coming off of it, and it's right next to the Pi. And then the RP2040 is right next to the front bumpers, so the cable length will be very short and it won't be near anything else. So it seems to be quite a lot more reliable now that I've put the RP2040 in as the one handling the sensors. I'm not sure if there's a huge difference between these two boards in terms of what they do. They're both MicroPython boards. The Tiny Pico runs almost twice as fast, but for my purposes, I'm running it at 19,200 baud, and seems to be pretty reliable. I tried knocking the baud rate down to even 4,800, didn't make any difference. I think it was something else. I think it was possibly wire crosstalk or something. I'm not sure. But I effectively have solved the problem by just using a different microcontroller in a different place on the robot. So.
One thing that I ran into with using NeoPixels is, you know, they put a lot of noise on your buses, and I had to when I was using servos, so to keep the servos noise free, I had to put a little, like 1/10 of a picofarad, 1/10 of a microfarad capacitor between the signal and ground, and that cleaned it up. But I'm just saying that if you have, I don't know if you have access to a scope or a logic probe, if you have a logic analyzer, if you have one of the cheap logic analyzers, if you look at it and you see a lot of little blips that you didn't expect, that might be it.
I have an old 1970s Iwatsu oscilloscope.
That'll work. It would work for this. Yeah. Everything is so low. It's not just. You might just think about checking your signal leads and seeing if everything's cool.
I mean, the one thing that I have been doing is that I think the numerical index that you can send into the to the neopixels are 0 to 255, and I don't have any need for it to be that bright. So I think the brightest number is 64. So I'm running them quite dim comparatively. So they're not having that big voltage spike that they might if I was running them at full brightness. Because I think that if you think about three LEDs at 255 is really overly bright, and all I need to do is be able to see them. So I'm not running them very bright. So I would assume the current would be pretty low comparatively.
Yeah, I ran into that too, Murray, when I was on my rover. I was using some neopixels to be indicators like you are, and I was trying to get it so that like there was a distant element. Otherwise, the closer or the higher the value was, the brighter the LED would be. But to do that, you have to, you can't use the top half of the LED because it's like blinding bright to really blinding bright, and you really can't see any difference. So you need to you got to be almost off to get anything like that. Yeah.
Until I started doing this with the UART, I actually had spent, I think, 3 or 4 days trying to come up. This is typical of me. I was trying to come up with my own serialization or serial transport protocol, and I actually wrote it, and it kind of worked. But it was compared to a UART, it was incredibly slow. I mean, I basically was writing my own UART. And I got, I think, about 12 hours into it, and I thought, what the hell am I doing? I mean, it just made no sense for me to be writing my own. And so I dumped it and just started using the UART. And of course, I went from having this ability to send hexadecimal slowly to being able to send like whole string. So it's only in the last week that I've thought about, oh, well, I could send, data, real data, not just Booleans or hexadecimal. And so currently I'm only hooking my digital sensors, and I've got 5 analog IRs, and my whole goal originally, this is like a year ago, was to hook the whole integrated front sensor, which is the whole front of my robot, through a device, a microcontroller. And so theoretically now, especially since I've now moved to the to the Itsy Bitsy, which was originally the Itsy Bitsy M4 Express, which was an ATSAM 21 or 51 or whatever it is. The whole goal of that sitting at the front of my robot was originally to take all the signals off of that front sensor array and send it to the Pi. And now that I can actually do that, I probably could just take the analogs off of, because they're actually running, I'm trying to think, they're running directly to the Pi right now. I could just put everything as I had originally planned like over a year ago into the RP2040 and send all of that stuff across the wire rather than just sending basically Booleans. And that would make more sense, because as it is right now, kind of the whole experiment of having a microcontroller as a second, like a sub-processor, was in mind of this longer-term goal of a Mars rover, where I've got, 6 motors, 6 steering, lots more sensors, and I wanted to offload as much of that to microcontrollers and have the Pi be only doing the sort of robot control. And it's, of course, UARTs, but the problem with that is that there's only one real UART on the Pi, and it's being used. And then the second UART is called a micro UART or mini UART or whatever, and that's the only one that's really available, and that's the one I'm using. But there's not 3 UARTs, and I need 3 if I was going to do what I was talking about, to have 3 sets of sensors and motor controls and all that. If I wanted to offload that off the Pi, I'd have to use something else, because the Pi's only got one real UART that you can use.
I was just going to ask where you're going, what you're going into, so you answered that. So you're going into the UART port that's sometimes used for like a serial console?
Yeah, it's the TXRX pins on the...
like pins 2 and 3 or whatever those pins,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, down near the power supply, yeah.
So
I think it's 4 and 5.
The way around your dilemma would be if you need more UARTs, and what I'm basically doing, I'm doing something similar. Right, I have 2 microcontrollers as kind of the slaves to my Pi. One is a QT Pi, and one is, well, the Romy control board that controls the motors. But the way I've connected those to the Pi is through UART, sort of, but over USB, but UART over USB. So on the Pi, I'm going into USB. because both my microcontroller boards that I'm interfacing with support USB device ports, right? So they present themselves as a serial port to the Pi, and so on the Pi it looks like a serial port, right? From
Well,
the
that's
software
actually
point
what-
of view, right?
and
It
that's
looks
what
like
you
a serial
connect up-
port, and the baud rate is whatever, you know. It's the concept of baud rate doesn't even apply anymore. You can make it whatever you want it to be. It's gonna go, the data is gonna go as fast as kind of the two sides can manage to handshake, but it eliminates that UART port limitation. But you gotta have a board on the other side that supports USB, and things like the QtPi fortunately do. And you got USB there now. Now the question, so you could use those. I mean, unless there's a reason you couldn't, right? I mean, again, I have had so far at least no issues that smell like signal integrity. You know, even though it's pretty fast signals bouncing around there, right? USB 2.0, not the high speed. I think it's full speed, so 12 megabits a second on the wire, and so, you know, that's been working okay for me so far.
Well, and so like when I'm the way I'm programming the microcontrollers is I'm actually R shelling into them, and so I just open up R shell to the TTY and I'm in, and I can actually load files, and it's actually quite a nice little work environment. But that's of course over USB, and so I now have both of those devices connected to my Pi already with USB. So thank you, Chris. That sounds like a reasonable solution, because all I'd have to do is I'm using the rest of my USB ports, but no, I could sacrifice one of the USB ports, and I'd have three then, because the only one that I really need to keep is I have one of these little keyboards, and I use the radio controller for that. But the rest of I'd have three, because there's 4 on a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus. So that actually would work really well. And as you said, the performance goes way up then.
Yeah, I mean, again, performance goes way up. You don't really end up leveraging that extra performance you get over USB, because you're going to send a couple dozen bytes, you know, maybe 100 times a second, whatever you're doing, right? You don't really care if you got megabits on the wire or kilobits, or, you know, tens of kilobits. It doesn't really matter that much. But so yeah.
And for the actual connection, like I said, I'm using R shell, but I'm not using UART anymore. So you just use serial I/O or what in MicroPython?
So well, on the microcontrollers, I don't run Python. I run Arduino framework, code on top of the Arduino framework. On the Pi, yes, I run Python and use the Python serial library to pull the data in, which has its own gotchas, and if you run into any issues, let me know. But and I don't remember the details, but there's ways to do it that are slow and have lots of overhead, and tie up a whole CPU core for just doing simple things, and there's things that's less overhead. So if you run into any issues like that, let me know, and I'll try to remember what those details were. But yeah, on the micro, I'm not using MicroPython, and on my Romy control board, it's just an 8-bit Atmel, right? It wouldn't be able to run Python anyway.
Okay, well that sounds good. I'll investigate that. It sounds like I'm currently hooked up using those TXRX pins as a UART, and that's functional for one device. And it's fine for this robot, because that's all that this robot's ever going to have. But I do have the shipment of my Go Builda parts in the mail. It's going to be here sometime soon. Lots of parts. I've got everything for 4 motors, 4 steering, and the basic chassis. So I can actually start working towards that, and I'm starting to think through the power supplies and all that. So yeah, I'm at the very, very beginnings of the Mars rover project. So that's pretty exciting. It's kind of it's like really, really hit my pocketbook though, because man, it's expensive getting stuff here. I mean, I spent like $300 New Zealand in shipping. I think I mentioned that last time, and the rest of it's going to be like another $300 in shipping. So yeah, you have to really bite the bullet when you have a hobby like this, I guess. So anyway, that's kind of it from me. I've been busy with that, and yep.
Yeah, with respect to ITC, I don't know if you've noticed they are, I don't know how quickly it's happening, but they're replacing the terminology master-slave with controller and peripheral. So
Yeah, I know, and I'm ignoring that entirely because I find that people who try to censor the use of language when it has nothing to do with human slaves just makes me actually kind of angry as a writer.
Well,
I mean,
it's
telling people
their
how
choice.
to think.
It's their
like,
choice. They can do it if they like, you know.
Well, I actually got emails from people. I had one guy about 2 years ago actually sent me a private mail. I think he was somewhere in Eastern Europe, and was asking me to stop using the slave word. It's like, there's no humans involved, pal. I mean, please, just stop. And there's some really famous woman who's trying to make the whole IT industry stop using the word slave. It's like,
yeah, I just
can't use the word Hitler either, right? Because if I say the word Hitler and anywhere on Discord, or Trump, by the way, it will bleep me.
Yeah, I just got an updated data sheet last week for microchip, and it appeared that the only thing they were changing in there was the master-slave terminology to controller and peripheral.
And it's actually, the thing is that it isn't controller peripheral. That's not even accurate. So, it's just, yeah, don't get me started. I just find the whole idea of censoring people's language over something so actually inaccurate. It's like,
too late. He's already started.
Yeah, okay, I'll stop.
That's the same thing with Disney.
I did note that Ray held up a Pi board. What's that all about, Ray? Because I'm jealous.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you. So yours is, it looks like that. It's based on the STM 405.
I haven't bought one yet. They're very expensive here, and they have the regular Pi boards are about $40 US, which I can get from Robot Shop. They even have a company called Zeo who makes a really nice purple one that uses stemma connectors. But the Pi board, you know, those I was trying to find out why they were so expensive and why they're not that popular. And apparently they're more targeted at industry. Like the D series are the expensive ones, and they're about the size of one of these. They're quite small, and they're like, the top of the line one is 69 pounds. I mean, it's a lot of money. And they do have a lot of accessories. They use these special little connectors on the back, and you can plug on an eMMC, a 4 gig memory module, and it's quite cool stuff. But if I added it all up and looked at the shipping costs and everything, it'd be like about $300 New Zealand to get all that stuff to me if I went for the high-end one versus what you've got, or one of the $40 ones, which I'd be fine. The big difference on the D series is that they have, one of them at least, has twice as much memory, and they're 216 megahertz rather than 168 megahertz. But for our purposes, for the kind of things, sort of like Chris was saying, for the kind of things we're doing, the difference between 168 and 216 megahertz when you're running a 20 hertz loop is just silly. I mean, there's no reason.
Yeah.
Part of the reason I wanted the D series is because they're kind of small and kind of cool looking. But, you know, if I had a purple whiteboard, yeah. But they run MicroPython natively as an OS. It's a really, it's a great little board. So I'm still kind of tempted. Yeah. But now that I've got this UART thing or whatever I end up doing with these, I mean, these are great little boards. This is the Itsy Bitsy RP2040 and the Tiny Pico. They're actually really nice little boards and very fast and very powerful. This is like $10 and this is maybe 20 or something like that. And they're very capable, and they've got lots of I/O on them, and they can run either C++ or MicroPython, and one of them can also run CircuitPython. So they're very, they're really nice boards, and there's not really a strong reason for me to go out and spend like $150 just to run a Pi board. So
yeah. I don't know if you've ever seen this before. This is from it's 01 Studio.
No, I'm not familiar.
Oh, okay. Anyway, this slot you can stick in an ESP32. You can stick in an adapter for the OpenMVH7. You can put in the Pi board in it. There are two displays over here. There's a connector for an OLED, 4-pin OLED, and then a color display, a much bigger one. And you can also get the Max Pi. There's a form factor for that also plugs into this. know, so it's kind of a universal base, and it's got it looks like three. Oh, whoops, nope, just one. It's got one kind of the equivalent of a quick connector on it. That's this one over here. These two are just 3-pin connectors. So for like a servo or something. Mm-hmm. That was about the most universal thing that I had found to kind of play with all these different boards.
Well, I just went to the PyBoard, the MicroPython PyBoard site, and the whole site is closed until the end of September for some reason. They don't mention why. Oh. So I was gonna look. The PyBoard has USB on it, doesn't it, Ray?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then I could do the same thing that Chris was suggesting with the PyBoard. Because the one thing that occurs to me is that my work method is to basically SSH onto the robot and do all my programming on that, and even push to GitHub from the robot. And I really like that way of working. And if I went to a microcontroller-based robot, I would lose that functionality. But it occurs to me that the alternative to that for the Mars rover, which I think maybe David would be happy to hear, is the idea of running the whole robot on the microcontroller, which, of course, what a radical idea. But if I was to go out and buy, yeah, Doug, you laugh. Yeah, if I went out and spent all that money on one of those D-series Pi boards, which are, admittedly a really, really nice little board, there's absolutely no reason that if I can figure out how to port my whole OS over from CPython to MicroPython, which would be a challenge, but theoretically is doable. I've kind of, the whole last week I've spent trying, some of my code over on and seeing like some things like a queue I had to implement myself. Async IO is available, so that's a big deal. And so all the pieces that I've been using in my OS are theoretically portable over to the MicroPython microcontroller. And if that's the case, then I sort of start to lose some of the reasons why I would stick with a Pi. And the only thing then is the ability to, let's say, SSH onto the board. But what I could theoretically do then is run the whole robot off of a single D-series, well, I wouldn't have to be, but I could run the whole robot off a D-series Pi board, and then reduce my Pi from being the main controller to being just the way that I SSH on. So I would probably use like a Pi 0W, and use that connected to the Pi board, and then run the robot off the Pi board and only use the Raspberry Pi for connectivity and for SSHing in and all that. And then I would just SSH into the Pi 0, R shell into the microcontroller, and just have a different, and then the Pi isn't the controller anymore. And that's kind of starting to sound like a reasonable thing for the Mars rover. The only thing that I haven't quite figured is connections to hardware. And because the libraries I'm using, for example, my motor controller is a Thunderboard, I'd have to figure out how to somehow implement some of those things. But those could be back on the Pi 0, I guess. But it starts to be this sort of juggling thing of trying to figure out where you implement things and how you're going to do it. But that's part of the challenge, of course.
One of the things is that the Nufio boards from ST Micro, you can download the Pi on the Python onto. It's probably about $10.
The only thing I found with the STM stuff is that almost all of the SDK stuff only works, as far as I know, and someone could correct me, is only runs on Windows. And I'm all on Linux. I don't even have a Windows box.
I do think they have a Linux solution, but I don't know what it is because
I couldn't find it.
Yeah, really?
And that's not unusual because, like, the Espressif stuff for ESP32 is all Windows as well, as far as I could tell. And I guess if you work in Linux, you just kind of get used to the fact that there's lots of stuff you just can't run unless you want to run Wine or something like that, which I'm just not. I can't be bothered.
Hey Ray, can you put the link to that universal board that you were showing in the?
Okay.
Yeah, that would be. That would be really nice. Yeah. I could see where it'd be very valuable. Okay. Anybody else? Who wants to go next? Okay, I'm going to go then. I'm going to show a few things that I think that are really important. This is coming up tomorrow, and this is called the Oak D Lite. You all have seen me running the well, excuse me. You don't see that. Give me a second. Now you see it, I think. All right.
Yep.
Okay. You see the guy holding a little rectangle with 3 cameras in it? Okay. This is starting tomorrow, and you can see it's 6 a.m. Pacific time, which would mean it's 8 here. Okay, so this is tomorrow at 8. It's the price that they're talking about is $74 for the early bird, super early bird. Okay, so this is something you probably want to, if you can afford 74, or probably you might not even get it. It's going to close out in minutes. Okay, but it's something that you need to be looking for. Let's see if there's anything here. Do I need prior experience in AI? Yeah, I'll let you guys read this. So here's the frequently asked questions. It's got Python for. It's got Python. I'm sorry.
You put the link in the chat.
Okay, let me. I can't. I don't have a link for this, but what I do have is a link for what they sent me because I supported their previous campaign. So let me do that.
What distance are we talking about? The capability that it can measure? Any clue?
It's not. It can see for it can see as far as the camera can see, but it doesn't necessarily divide the furthest distance into ranges. Otherwise, I want to say the ranges, if I remember right, were around 10 or 12 feet. Okay, but I only did I only played with it a little bit and got their basic demo working and everything. So I don't know on the Oak Light. We'll see. Let's go down. Maybe it's. That was what I really see. Okay, they're basically saying that the Oak D was very successful, but it cost too much. And I can tell you, it was expensive. I really hesitated to do it, but I figured it was worth backing the project. If you happen to be the very first person, which I don't think anybody would be lucky enough to do that, you get one of everything for free. Can you guys, somebody check that link I gave out to make sure that...
Yeah, Doug, I checked. It works.
Okay. And let's see. Here's some up to 10 meters. That's what they suggested on this one. So this one's 10 meters, it says.
That's pretty darn good.
Yeah. So anyway, like I say, that's why I thought this was very important that everybody saw this, because this is really pretty cool. Now, I don't know what their real price is going to be, but if you're in there early, possibility, if you look at that link, I think they say they're going to be 270 slots for single quantity purchases. So if you're in the top 275, you could get one at this price, but I don't know what happens after that.
Doug, I heard that they're going to be around $150.
Okay, so that's about half the price of an Oak D, I believe. And no, I didn't pay that for mine. I got it a little cheaper because I got it at a Kickstarter. But I'm just saying is, I do think, guys, that you really should, if you can afford it, and I'm not trying to talk anybody into something they can't afford, that this one would be a good sensor to have. Because they made a lot of progress with Oak D. I mean, a lot of projects came out, a lot of the community. But their biggest complaint was, it cost 300 and something bucks. So now if they can get one down to 150, that's going to open up the community even more. So anyway, I'm throwing that out. Let's see. I had something else I wanted to, I told you about that. Okay, now I want to show you this from DF Robot. If you're working with a Pico, this looked like a really nice expansion board. Unfortunately, they're currently out of stock, but here's what it looks like. It has.
You're still displaying the other guys from Oak.
Well, I am. Shouldn't. Why? Boop.
Hey, Doug, I just looked up.
Yeah,
the board.
you're on.
It's been discontinued.
Huh?
I put the link in there, but they said it's been discontinued.
Okay, but at least.
You can't get it anymore.
Okay, are you guys seeing thing from DF Robot now?
Now, finally.
Okay.
There it is.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So this thing is $490. This is what it looks like. They're out of stock currently, but it's a true nice breakout board. It if you go to their wiki, they show how it's. They have the digital on this side. They have the analog here. They have the 2 IC squared buses over there. They have the 2 UARTs right there. They have, what is that? That's SPI, I think. I think this is the SPI. And anyway, they have it all broken out. And for well, let me put it this way: you got to buy 2 to be able to pay for the shipping. It's very interesting. When I went to the shipping site, what they showed, they had an option which is very reasonably priced to use Hong Kong postage, but it had very unreliable, product not insured. And I think this is because of the recent crackdown with China. They're kind of squirreling them up. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. Now, for something that I thought was really a good, interesting little piece of kit is this one is from Robot Shop, and it's a Raspberry Pi. Can you see? Am I on I'm on Robot Shop now?
Yep.
Okay. As you can see, it's just 2 pieces of either ABS or plexiglass. I'm not sure which. I'm sure it tells you.
Yeah, it looks like plexiglass.
Yeah, but if you notice, this is real minimal. It's got, first of all, it's got this notched front piece, and then it has a piece that clips on, just little compression clips into one of the notches, and then the back piece has also got a quarter inch, it's either a female or a male, I guess it's female, so quarter inch threaded mount for use with a tripod mount. But so this is really, so if you had a laser cutter, this is trivial. But if you got a 3D printer, this would be extremely trivial to print. And it'd be kind of a nice little feature for your Raspberry Pi camera. I've been
Doug, I've for some reason, I'm not sure what I got in one of these from a kit or something, but I've had one of these before, and the only downside I can say is that because it is acrylic plastic, I no longer have mine. It snaps pretty quickly. The plastic is easily broken.
Okay.
But if you look on your image down the lower right-hand side, where there's a Raspberry Pi board case for $295.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bought a couple of those, and those are extremely durable, and they give you an actual brass camera mount on the back.
Yeah.
So those are actually a little bit better, and they actually protect the camera pretty well as well.
I agree, Murray. The problem with that, well, wait a minute. It says version 2. The one I got only worked with version 1. I got mine actually back a while ago from Adafruit. So maybe they've updated it. You're right. Because I didn't.
I'm using that on my camera, so it must work. What did I do with it? I can't find it right now, but I've actually got one of them that I just bought within the last month or two, and they work really well. And they're not waterproof or anything, but they really do protect the camera a lot better. And that other one, I think you're right. To 3D print it would make sense with a softer plastic, but with acrylic they snap really, really quickly.
Okay.
I broke mine within the first, and I'm not hard on my equipment, but I broke it within like a week.
This is the one that I have, and it is an extremely nice and protective case. The only problem with it is this one was only good for a version 1 camera, and I just happen to have one version 1 camera. All my other cameras are version 2, and so they wouldn't fit in here.
The webcam that I'm using right now is actually a custom webcam based on Raspberry Pi Zero.
Yeah.
With Pi camera and 3D printed parts that I designed myself. So,
Yeah. Okay, now
it's an ideal 3D printing project.
Yeah. All right. So, but anyway, I thought it was a good design stimulus, so I thought I'd share that with you. And then I have one other thing I wanted to share with you. I mentioned this in the list, and it's a smoothing function, and this is it. I cleaned it up and put it in a function so that I can just throw it into my useful functions file with my robot code. So let me see if I can get this to work. Okay, so here you can see it. This is the LED that's being modulated, and also it's getting brighter, and now it's getting dimmer. It's off. It's getting bright. This is the same thing that we discussed earlier with Murray, that it's hard to get it to do. But here you can see the actual, the first value is what it's supposed to be going towards, and the second value is what I'm allowing them to go up to by counting. I'll show that in a little bit here. Okay, and here's the, I know this is sideways, but if you guys wanted to, this is just an example. If you just wanted to copy the code and try it out. Okay, and here's the actual function right here. So you can see it's just a couple of lines. But it's really kind of cool. And so I thought that might be, if you're wondering about those sort of things, this one might be useful. All right. And
Doug, did you say you posted that to the list?
Well, I mentioned, I mentioned something about it. I didn't put any code. I just said, here's a guy. Now, this is the one where we were talking about the eyeballs. This was he was using it to drive servos. I was using it to just drive a PMW value, but you can see it's very flexible. It works. Anyway, it's something to think about. So let's see. Anyway, those were the things I wanted to cover tonight and share with you. Has anybody else got anything they want to talk about?
Yeah, I wanted to show something if I can.
Okay, right.
You had seen it, maybe you got an email about it or something. This was an announcement from ST about a seminar, and apparently now they've made an 8x8 multi-zone, the 63-degree field of view I didn't see where they said what distances it's going to work over, but apparently you can get 64 individual distances across that field of view. So it almost kind of looked like, kind of like a solid state LiDAR, two-dimensional. Of course, 8x8 is not that great, but I think for little robots, it might be a pretty good thing. Anyway, that's on Tuesday. If anybody's interested, on the 21st, you can sign up.
Yeah.
2 p.m.
Well, as Kareem knows, that we've had some success in promoting the idea of developing products to Pimoroni. They've built one of the boards we suggested, and so maybe sending an email off to one of their people saying, "Look at this new sensor," they might put it on a board for us.
Yeah.
I'm unfamiliar with the terminology. What does the 8x8 refer to?
Basically, it divides up that field of view into an 8x8 grid, and so you get 64 individual distances out of each of the zones.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is.
I would love to have that sensor. That would be so cool.
Yep.
Yeah. Ray, can you put that link since you have it handy? Just put it in. And yeah, I've already signed up for that, by the way.
You did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Related to that, Terabee is also having a LiDAR array seminar, I believe. Give me a second, see if I can get that real quick.
Ray, do you know if anybody's put that onto a breakout board yet, or is it still just the sensor itself?
I think ST might have it on a breakout board, but I don't know. I haven't read through all the details of it yet.
Yeah, it's pretty, if you don't have the ability to do that level of soldering, it's kind of hard to use their sensors directly.
Yeah, yep.
I think it's here.
I mean, those things are like the size of a grain of rice, I think. It's about 6 by 6 millimeters or something like that.
They're pretty small.
Okay, here's a couple other similar ones. One is 3D time of flight for depth sensing on the 16th, and another one how to do sensor arrays for drones and robot collision on the 30th. Anyway, so here's something that you might be interested in too, and I think I can put this. Okay.
Yeah, Kirby seems awfully proud of their sensors.
Oh yeah, I agree, but I'm hoping that they'll have some useful information.
Yeah.
Murray, I just put up a link for a set of code for the Nucleo boards and Discovery boards, and all it requires is to be able, they are the so-called DFU format, so I would think that could be done on a Unix machine.
Okay, thank you. I thank you for the link. I'll investigate that.
Can somebody check this link to see if that'll take you to that Terabee website? Just click on it and see if you see it. Anybody see it?
It goes into Gmail.
That's not probably good.
The first word was mail, so it opens up your mail client.
But it didn't show you there. Okay. I don't know if I can. I'll delete it out of the. All right. I'll find the link and put it in there for you guys. It'll be in the stuff for that's posted on the web. Okay. Who else wants to go? Hey Raj, have you looked at that challenge course yet? You're muted.
Yeah. No, I didn't get a chance to look at it yet. I think I found the GitHub library. I need to set it up, and
okay.
I was starting to set up my desk, so I'm slowly starting to unpack things.
Okay, all right.
Setting up a lab kind of thing, set up here, for opening up my tools. So that kind of kept me busy.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I was just wondering if you were still taking this challenge. All right.
Oh, sure, yeah. I'm taking that as a challenge. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. We have I don't remember. Maybe I might be doing Jason, do you have anything you want to say? Jason. You're muted. You're muted if you're trying to talk to us.
Oh, he said nope in the text.
Okay, I got you. Good. Ed, how about you? Anything you want to add?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. Kelly, have you gone?
I have not. No. This week I've been programming Arduino Nano Every to talk to a GPS device, a BN880, which has a built-in compass, and that's going pretty good. Data's formatted JSON styles, so I'm getting it ready to add that as a service to my Ross rover. And
cool.
It was kind of a little annoyance is that the compass feature actually is a separate chip they just threw in there, a HMC 5883. It's like you have to have separate libraries for the compass functionality than for the GPS, but they're working together okay. But one of them, the library gives you the azimuth to your destination in clockwise from north, and the magnetometer gives you the direction in counterclockwise to north. So I had to write some code there to get them both to agree on how the directions are going to be oriented, clockwise or counterclockwise. But it took just a minor amount of code, but it's kind of fun to play with. I hope to get it integrated into my rover soon. And I actually purchased some Nano Arduino Nano Every. I didn't know that it was different than a regular Nano, but it actually has a faster processor in it. It's got a 40 megahertz processor and like an Altmega 268 processor, I think. And I had to add some extra drivers to my Arduino environment to program it, because it's not a regular Nano, even though they call it a Nano. So that was a kind of a pleasant surprise that it was a better performer. They were really good deal on them, like 3 for $30.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of surprised that it seemed to be a pretty good value after I realized it's not just a regular Nano. I thought, oh, I don't want to use another Chinese-made one again. I want to use a genuine Arduino, to sponsor the architect. And I actually got a good deal out of it, being a 40 megahertz processor.
How about memory? I know that the original Nano, one of the problems people said was it didn't have enough memory.
Well, it has 48 kilobytes of flash and 6 kilobyte of SRAM.
Okay, so it has I think it has more SRAM, but I don't know about the other one. It sounds pretty similar. Yeah, that's okay. It sounds like a step up.
Kelly, which model is that, Kelly?
It's called the Nano Every.
Oh.
It looks just like a regular Nano. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got the Sense.
Yeah. But the packaging, I thought I was buying a regular Nano, but it's something. It's about a year old. This model is actually a year old, but it's significantly more than just a regular Nano.
And they've got quite a lot of boards now. I mean, they're trying to remain competitive. It's kind of funny though, because this is a 64 megahertz clock on this one, And the only reason I'm not using it is because it's 5-volt logic, and I wanted a 3.3-volt logic. But it's actually a pretty capable board. It's got a megabyte of flash and 256K of SRAM, and it's got can't remember what it's on here. It's got several sensors. It's got an accelerometer and a few other things, but yeah. It's a pretty hot market nowadays.
Yeah. So if you can't get a Pico like you want, pick up one of these little Everys, and there's lots of existing code out there for it. I think the other little glitch I had was some of these libraries were only supported 4800 baud, and I had to kick up the baud rate to use this with my a little GPS module. But it's got supports some pretty high baud rates,
Kelly, are you using somebody a couple of meetings ago showed a GPS, and I want to say they got it off of Amazon for about $14. Is that are you the person who was using that?
I am using a $20 GPS, the BN880. It has the built-in compass.
Okay.
Some of them in the $15 price range do not have the compass chip in them.
Okay. All right. Do you know who makes the actual GPS? Is it Uplot? Or I don't know.
It's Beatin, BEITIAN. They've got quite a selection on Amazon.
Okay.
And they range from about $12 to $20.
Okay. But you're not having any issues basically with it?
I'm not. It's working with this Nano very well.
Okay, cool. Has anybody used the Tiny GPS library or one of its variations?
I am using the Tiny GPS Plus, and I did try the regular Tiny GPS as well on this, just as a test. So they both run on this one.
Yeah. What was your experience? No problem?
Yeah, no problem. I did have to kick up the baud rate on the library. It was not reading, and the baud rate in the source code was set at 4800, and it needed to be like 9600 for my Nano board.
Okay. All right.
And I used the wiring I found at DroneBot. He had a good wiring diagram for the Nano and these GPS. So he had a good wiring diagram, and I did not have to modify the source code.
Okay, that's the DroneBot guy?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, Doug, what you holding up?
I think this was what you were talking about. It's a Betran 880 GPS module I was talking about several weeks ago.
Yeah,
I would put it in one of my robots, one or two robots from now, but not yet.
So Kelly, that's the one you're using, basically?
It is.
Okay, cool. All right. Let's see.
What kind of accuracy can you get, like down to 1.5 meters with? They'll do like Russian, U.S., European. I don't know who else.
So far, this one it points to my desk in the living room sometimes, and then sometimes it points 4 meters into the backyard.
Oh.
So it seems to shift north, and they'll, I don't know, plus or minus 2 meters. So,
well, that might also be because you're in your house, right?
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
Okay, let's see who we haven't talked to Harold. Hey Harold, what you doing?
I am researching Pontiac 2003 Pontiac Montana, also known as the most unfriendly mechanics car ever made in existence of cars being made. It seems that my headlights, headlights, I have to turn them on. So my normal headlights for the auto thing don't come on. The door's open, it dings all the time, and my dashboard lights don't come on. and my tail lights don't come on, but my brake lights work.
So you know,
I'm having all kinds of good times.
Is your battery connection tight?
My battery is connected tight. Yeah.
Jeep started doing all kinds of weird light things, and it was the battery connection was loose.
I've got it pretty. I mean, I almost replaced it this last weekend because I thought might be something wrong with it because it I think there's something draining a charge on it, and I think something grounding somewhere, and I'm having a really difficult time finding wiring diagrams and other things, so I can get in there, prod around and poke around in there and see what's going on.
Well, can you give us a little history on this car? Because, you know, not too many of us probably, even I, don't have a 2002 car. That's pretty old.
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, yeah. Well, I drive small vehicles, so
yeah,
I don't have to pay. I don't have to make payments on them. So
yeah, I understand that, but I'm just curious. Is this a car that you bought new and
No. I didn't buy this car new. In fact, I can tell it's probably been in a wreck at some point and been repaired because I can see the evidence of somebody in there with a splice thing and some wire crimps and that kind of stuff going on there.
And some Bondo.
What now? Wire crimps. I can see where things have been crimped together and replaced and that sort of thing. So
also some Bondo, I expect.
Some Bondo. Probably I haven't found any actually on the car, but that doesn't mean it ain't there yet.
So is this a project car then?
No, I drive this every day.
During the day? I hope during the day.
During the day. It's fine during the day. And so I'm usually home before dark, and I usually leave by the time sun's coming up and everything. So it's not a problem.
This is a self-driving car, is it, Harold?
What now?
This is a self-driving car, is it?
Yeah, because it's myself driving it. So
yeah, exactly.
Only in that sense.
And so I get to start figuring that out because there's no way this thing will pass inspection on the thing, and so it's kind of bugging me. I finally recognize that the symptoms are just not some little bit of weirdness going on. Other people have had this problem too, and normally what happens is, well, I tried all these things, it didn't work. I'm just taking it into repair guys. You know what? I can't imagine. I know maybe one person I could talk to, and he doesn't do this kind of work anymore. That I would trust repairing this stuff because it's some wacky electrical thing, and then when I find it, it's going to be something dead stupid. I know I just feel it in my gut. That's what it is. So anyway, I'm just looking for. What now?
Do any of the wires look like a rodent and chewing?
No, I've got to, and that's something I got to do because I wasn't looking for that the last time I replaced the headlamps. One of them burned. Take it back. One of the side lamps wasn't working, and so I haven't checked. I haven't checked even the basic things now because these I see these newer cars, even though this is 2003. There's like at least two places where fuse boxes are, maybe another third place depending on where it is, and I just haven't located all the stuff on this car to go do all that stuff. I've had other problems with this car, and like for instance, I changed the alternator on this car a few months ago, and I don't know if you remember that story. When I mean mechanic unfriendly, I mean mechanic unfriendly. To change the alternator in this car, which it's usually pretty there, go there to do what you have a choice. Either you can drop the engine down, which how about I'm not doing that in my garage or my driveway, or what I opted to do was take out the water reservoir for the windshield wiper motor, the battery, and one other thing. And the battery come out. It's got a brace that has to come out on top of the battery. It's a body brace. It's over top of the battery. And then you strap the engine down, unbolt the top two engine mounts, and roll the engine forward about that much, and then reach around behind, and there's a couple of bolts that you got to blind get to unbolt the alternator from, and then you can get the alternator out. And that's by design. I'm like, who designed this? I want to kill somebody. So anyway, I got that, put it back in there, and that there's a pain in the butt. And so this car was pretty good. We got a pretty good deal on it several years ago, and it, it's just old. Part of it's just old. Plastic breaks on it here and there. Something happened where there's a part where this is a couple of years ago. My wife calls me, "Hey, we got water draining out from the hood or whatever," and I'm like, "Park it, I'll be over." And there's this plastic bit that kind of goes up and branches out in 2 or 3 different directions, and it's a kind of a water distribution thing, and it's all plastic, and it's like 15 years old, so it just crumbled. So luckily for me, I know how to sweat solder, so I replaced that with a bunch of 1/2-inch copper pipe and some soldering stuff. Imagine that.
Yeah.
And now when my mechanic who does some work on it finally got around to looking at it, he's just like, "Man, no one gets back there without doing a bunch of extra work, and you did." He was kind of impressed, actually. And he goes, "I looked at that thing and I said, it's not the prettiest sweat starter job either, is it?" And he goes, "No, but it's never wearing out ever again." It's just one of those things. He, in fact, that's the only guy I know I'd trust to take this car to, and he lives up the street from me, and he's pretty much retired. This the COVID did him in. Had to shut down his business because he couldn't really maintain all the protocols they all wanted him to maintain. So he shut down his business, and he was old enough there. He wanted to retire anyway. Sold off his business to some 4-wheel tire shop, four-wheel thing. They sell four-wheel drive parts and jack up your car and all that kind of stuff. And we only got 27,000 of those things around my neighborhood. Like we needed another one, but I guess they're doing okay. And he says, "Well, I'll still do some work for you," but every time I call him, he never gets my messages. So I'm suspecting he's not doing any work for me anymore.
He's avoiding.
I don't blame him though. I do not blame him. And so I'm going to go look some more of this, and if it goes along too far, then I will take it in. But this is not something I just, how it seems the older cars get. Well, okay, if this car was really old, like if this car was a 1960 something, or even somewhere south of 1980, I would have confidence to take it into a lot of people and fix it, and have relatives like, "Oh yeah, this is going to be a good fix." But there's these cars in the middle where there's just enough electronics to be problematic and stupid, and there's just weird things happen. They go, "Yeah, you just need to get a new one." It's just one of those things. That, and I've been up since 4 o'clock this morning or so doing some things because dealing with some other stuff. I don't really have anything robotic to say, so that's why I've been kind of quiet. Looking for things over here because Saturday during the day I'll be ripping into this thing with my multimeter and my flashlight and see how far I can get and figure out what the hell's going on.
Okay, hey Chris, you said you raised your hand?
Yeah, that was by accident, sorry.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
okay.
I just got a bunch of whining,
Yeah.
I got no cheese for you, but I got lots of wine.
Well, I got a notice that you were giving a talk on 3D printing or something here in
Yep, that'll be tomorrow in the Hackster DFW. We're having a split meetings. I show up. I'm in the room. We've had a couple of people show up a couple times. We have people show up online a couple times, and so I just had to do another 3D printer talk intro to it. I had to update a bunch of slide decks. My slide deck with new stuff, so I figured why let a brand new slide deck go to waste? Let's use it a few times, and away we go.
Okay, hey, well, you might want to put a link to that if you're in the chat, so that
Sure,
people
I can
know.
find one. I'll put one in there.
Okay.
Guys are welcome to show up because there's a Discord one you can meet online, and then if you want to come by and see me, you can do that too. But that's
That's on Legacy, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Legacy and
Hitchcock.
okay. All right. So
just let me know you're coming, so I can make sure we go, because we do order pizza, so we want to make sure we order enough pizza.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. Did I miss anybody? Is anybody? Oh, John, you haven't said anything.
Which John?
This John, probably.
Yeah, John K. I should have said.
And no, I really don't have anything. I was going to work on the project, but didn't. But I did dig out the other day this thing.
Oh, that's nice.
So, but the key is I don't have any software on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the basic one.
Mm-hmm. All right.
But the main thing with it, I don't think it'll show up because black on black. Anyway, it has a real encoder on that spot there.
Okay.
So, in theory, it should be able to work indoors and do well. So we'll see.
Okay. All right then, guys. If this is it, does anybody else have anything to want to say? Now's the time.
I've got a follow-up link. I found a what looks to be really affordable way to build animatronic eyes with 2 degrees of freedom and even blinking eyelids with with 6 servos. I'll post the link here. And the guy actually provides his STL files for printing all the parts.
Yeah, John.
If you look at his video, at about 1 minute in, you can see how you can see it in action, and it looks pretty cool. It's not the skull; it's just the eyes. So imagine somebody could take that mechanism and put it inside a skull. It would be a perfect Halloween project.
There's if you look at the link that I put in the list this week, it's got a similar mechanism. The one that has smoothing, how to smooth values, because his big thing was to make one just like the one you showed, okay? And he also has all the files, everything you need. But what he wanted to do is he says if you just let it go like pop to here and pop to there, it's not very convincing. So that's what that smoothing function is supposed to do. It's just it starts fast and slows down as it reaches close to the target. Anyway, if you're on our mailing list, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you should have it in your email.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? You got any more, John?
Nope.
Okay. All right then. I'm going to stop the recording here.